So yeah, welcome everybody to our meetup today. We have Charlie joining us, so I'll give him a full intro later. Going to do a few kind of introductory things and announcements. We are going to be recording this, as we always try to put them on our YouTube page. So really, when we're live here, it doesn't matter all that much unless you want to ask a question. So the way that will work is I'll have, we'll have the laptop kind of turned so Charlie can see everybody. But if you have a question, at the end, kind of queue up here, and you kind of, we need to get close to the laptop so we can hear you and to ask questions, but that will then capture you, and we will, so if you don't want to be on YouTube, you'll have to follow up and ask questions another time. So that's that around privacy. Anyone who's remotely joined, there's quite a few. Thanks so much for doing that. If you have any questions, you can put them into the chat, but we're not going to really do like an online thing. It's too hard to manage here. But we'll be recording that, and you guys can at least view it remotely, which is great. So the first thing I'll mention is, in order to do these kind of remote speaker things, which is really awesome, we had to kind of book this room that has the screen and internet available, and the weather's not that warm just yet because kind of summer's holding out on us a bit. So this room did cost a little extra to book. So if you can help make donations towards that, that'd be really helpful. Really appreciate it. I already got some already. Cash and e-transfer is accepted. My e-transfer is in the meetup invite, so you can find it there. But thank you, everyone. And then also, kind of last minute, I do apologize. Last minute, kind of threw out the idea of having a potluck. So thanks for the few people who brought stuff. We did bring some burgers. Thanks, Paul, for picking them up today. And someone is meant to be bringing a grill, hopefully. So. Well, yeah, you got it. Awesome. Oh, sorry, I don't remember. So we're gonna have a grill. We'll be able to do that and eat something together and hang out for a bit after. We have the room until 8 o'clock, and we can just open the door and just kind of hang out outside too. And so that should be pretty awesome. So thank you for that. I think we'll go with the potluck going forward. It's really difficult to deal with having the grills and stuff. So we'll probably just do potluck. That'd be really helpful. And I think it's kind of fun to do that. So we'll probably do that in the future more. Let's see, what else? Okay, also, for a lot of you folks, especially if you're new members, thanks for coming. If not, you've heard me go on about this before, but we do have an online chat group on an app called Discord that we use. And so it's a good way to kind of keep in touch in between. Sometimes we have like unofficial events. We just kind of get together. We've gone to movies. We've hung, we'll just like go on picnics, do whatever, go on hikes and stuff. And so a lot of extra conversation, information sharing, questions and answer happens there too. So if you're interested in that, it's on an app called Discord. You can just, either message me or just talk to me here, and I can get you invited there, which is, it's a nice place. A lot of us hang out there. And then also we did, you see some folks have name tags on. It's really hard for me to keep track of everyone's names, but also, especially when you're on those apps and people use like a different name than their real name, sometimes it's hard to match the names and faces. So if you want, you can put a name tag on, and if you have like a handle or a screen name on the app, you can put that on there too. It'd be really nice. Helps us everyone remember that. So if you want to do that, there's some back there. And that's that. Also, if you do join on there, there's a link to an anonymous feedback form. And in some of the meetup invites, there should be a link to a feedback form. If you have any good ideas, if you have any complaints, especially, it's anonymous, so we won't know who you are. Any suggestions or whatever, please let us know. That's available there. We always want to try to be making this as good as we can and constantly improving it. So please, let you know that's available. So going to mention a few more events here. So sometime this month, we'll do another Trip Tales. That's a very different format event. We're just kind of getting together a small group discussion, allowing people to share about different journeys or trips or experiences they've had, get some Q&A going. Usually like 10, 15 people are showing up to that. And yeah, it's pretty fun. So they'll be announcing that pretty soon. And then in a month from now, I think it's, we have June 26th, going to be another Sunday. 4 weeks or so from now, we're going to have one of our own members, Jeremy, who many of you may know, from the group. He's going to be doing the talk. We're going to do that one in Stanley Park, where we had the mushroom growing seminar, which is real nice. The bus goes right there and everything, and it'll be outdoors. Hopefully be warmer by then. And Jeremy will be giving a talk about kind of some of his journeys, some ups and downs he's had over the last few years with psychedelics and recovery. I'm very, very looking forward to that. Obviously, it's always great to have our own members giving our talks as well. So that should be really awesome. All right, so with that said, thanks all for coming again. I'm going to give Charley a little introduction here. So Charley's from New York City. He's a licensed counselor. He can probably explain all any more details on that. But Charley, he has a book that he's recently released called Listening to Ecstasy, which is an amazing resource about MDMA. And he'll probably get into some details about what that's about. I have 4 signed copies here available for sale for $20 Canadian. They are normally a little bit more than that and signed, so get them all hot. There should be 4 copies back there. Let me know if you'd like them, and also on Amazon and stuff if you want to order it afterwards. But yeah, so Charley is a kind of a really special person to me. I come from New York City. I only moved here to Vancouver like 3 years ago. And he kind of was a leader of a group of psychedelic folks out there who kind of met each other through the Horizons Conference, which is a psychedelic conference that happens out in New York City. And him and his amazing wife Charley do these potluck dinners around Christmas time every year. And I was able to attend one of them and meet this whole amazing group of folks there. And that's like my first introduction to any psychedelic community. And the first time I actually did any MDMA outside of the format of first time doing any psychedelic MDMA, anything like that, outside of a guided journey was with Charley and his group. So he's a very special person to me, and I'm really excited that you all get to meet him. And that's all I have to say. Charley, thanks so much for joining us, and welcome to my friends here in Vancouver.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me all right? Good, good. Well, since Kenny, I guess you're not interviewing me, so I guess you just want me to speak on some topics.
I didn't have an interview planned. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. Let me just share with you where I am just at this moment. My wife, it's not Shirley, it's Shelley. Kenny.
Shelley, sorry, I'm under pressure talking in front of people. No. I'm cracked under the pressure.
That's okay. I have come off an extraordinary experience just yesterday. Every year we lead a spring roll in Brooklyn here. And it's grown over time. And yesterday we did it. We usually do it over Memorial Day weekend, and it's usually in Prospect Park in Brooklyn. But yesterday was rainy and showers, so 2 people who are part of the group volunteered their place. Well, it just turned out that the place is probably the most extraordinary apartment I've ever been in my life. Not only is it huge, but it's overlooking a grand view of New York City from Brooklyn. And there's an outdoors as well as an indoors in the place. And so even when it rained, after it rained, we could go out and barefoot and run barefoot through the wet grass. We were all on MDMA for the day, and it was extraordinary because of the people who were there, and of course the medicine. I've learned over time, and this is in my book, I'm a big believer in the value of group experiences as long as they're curated the right way. In the psychedelic world, we talk about set and setting, right? Well, the most important part of one setting, I believe, is who's there, who is with you, who's around you. And so I've learned over time how to choose the people for these group experiences very carefully, because you don't want somebody who is going to dominate the room or be an ego tripper and just call all the attention to themselves all day long, with everyone else with having such a softened heart from the medicine that they don't want to tell the person to shut up. yeah, yeah, one has to choose the people very carefully. And I've learned over the years how to do that. So we were supposed to have 50 people, um, but COVID decided otherwise. So we turned out to have 38. But it was such a beautiful time. We had a healing circle in the middle of it for about an hour where people just bared their souls and talked about personal losses or they're grieving over the state of the world and the country. And was receiving a lot of healing from the group. And we did other exercises as well that took advantage of this rare space that we were all in together for the day. And friendships are going to grow out of that day as they have over these other experiences that we've had over the years. This was our 12th annual spring roll, and connections and contacts and but most importantly, the friendships. So Shelley and I were just delighted to be able to be the connectors here and help build the community here in New York. And I'm saying this all to you because anyone in your room there that I'm looking at now could do this. And it's a terrific way of expanding your friendships, the people that are in your life, because the people drawn to the psychedelic community. I like to say that the best part of the psychedelic community isn't the psychedelics, it's the community. It's the people who are drawn to it. And these are I'm sure that as I look out at this, at all of your faces, that most of you, because you're drawn to this medicine, are really dedicated to your own healing, are really dedicated to exploration, are really curious about the potential of your life and life on this planet, life of the human species. And you're generally going to be an open-hearted, open-minded person. That's what I have found in the psychedelic community. And so to gather some well-chosen people for such an experience is something that it can be a beautiful way of not only spending the day, but improving your life and the lives of people that you gather. So I just want to put that out for what it's worth. Also, let me say that in preparing for today, Kenny and Christoph had wanted me to speak about relationships and couples. I call MDMA the chemical of connection because it helps one connect to themselves and to others and the world at large and nature. And I believe that maybe you can understand what I'm saying, or maybe you agree with me, that there's a relationship crisis in this country, not just between members of a couple, but between members of society, where people are, due to the polarization in this country and the dark side of social media, people are suspicious of each other, and there's a lot of mistrust and if not outright hatred between groups of people. And that's, I mean, when I say this country, of course, I'm talking about my country, which is the U.S., but Canada has always struck me as a sane alternative to America. It's a lot of Americans would be, a lot more Americans would be living there if it was easy to immigrate to your country, but it's not. Many Americans want to escape to Canada. But I suspect that you're having some similar issues there, unfortunately. And I've found, Shelley has found, the people in our community here have found that MDMA, psychedelics in general, and MDMA in particular, can act like relationship superglue, can help bond people together. Because, as you know, it floods the system with serotonin and oxytocin and all those feel-good, safety feeling hormones, and you're dropped into this space of where your normal ego boundaries are temporarily dissolved. You drop into the space of when the atmosphere is right, when the setting is right, a space of communion with the people that you're with or the person that you're with. Some people like to use MDMA alone. I never have. I always felt like rolling alone is like, it's feeling like I'm all dressed up with nowhere to go. Um, I just want to connect with people. And uh, Shelley and I have found it's a beautiful way of celebrating our relationship and of deepening it and adding a whole other layer of intimacy and depth and connection and joy to our relationship. We have rolled about, well, we've been together about, well, it's going to be 22 years this July. We met in middle age, and after our first marriages had dissolved, and Shelley and I have been married for about 16 years now, and we've rolled about 75 times during this period, about 4 or 5 times a year in general. And it's added a whole other layer of joy to our relationship. And it seems to have, at least for me and Shelley and others we've known, a cumulative effect over time, where if you roll often enough over time and do it the right way, not doing it every week, especially if you're over 30 or 40 or 50, you can't do it that often anymore. But if you do it right and your chemicals are, your stash is pure and you test it for purity, which you can pretty cheaply and very easily, and you make sure it's pure and your dosage is right and you measure it to the milligram. Don't use a pressed pill, please. But even if you use powder, you have to test it. If you do it right, you're adequately hydrated throughout the experience. You take 5-HTP and supplements on the other side of it. It's hard to have a negative experience. Some people do, but most people have quite positive experiences. It's why I think it's the one psychedelic that, and I do consider it a psychedelic, even though it's not a hallucinogen, of course. It's the one medicine that I think is going to be the most popular in the next 20 years, because it's in my country, it's going to be the first to finish, to cross the federal finish line and be a prescription medication by the end of next year. In Canada, I suspect that similar liberal laws are being passed. That's what I understand. So because it's the most user-friendly of all psychedelics, it's going to be the most popular. And as the stigma of illegality falls away, the demand is going to be huge, especially for people who want to address their maladies, but also just for, as they say, the betterment of well people who want to just improve or enhance their relationship, people who want to expand their social network and have a greater sense of connection to the people in their lives and to the community and the world at large. I'll be curious if you have any questions about this, but it's a beautiful way to enhance relationships. And I've spoken to so many people over the years who say the same thing. People have come to me, especially since the book came out, telling me about their experiences and about how two members of a partnership were like, the two spouses were in really deep trouble with each other until they rolled together under the right circumstances and found a way back through their hearts to each other and were able to keep that going, maybe by rolling again at another time, but learning how to integrate the experience. And as you probably understand, integration is the most important part of any psychedelic experience. Otherwise, it's just a unique and maybe wonderful experience, but it doesn't have to change your life if you don't integrate it well into your life. So I love to talk about integration. And I don't know what else to say about, excuse me, MDMA for couples right now, or for groups of people. But I believe it's really a solution that's waiting for many of the ills of society. In America, they talk about the epidemic of loneliness in our society. I frankly don't know what it's like there in Canada as far as that goes. I suspect you have a similar epidemic and maybe not as bad as it is in this country, but I don't really know. But I believe that, well, you know how in nature it's said that often next to the poison that grows the antidote. And in the society that we have now, there's a poison of alienation and suspicion and loneliness and retreat from the world, more on the part of men, actually. Men are more in trouble in the society than women, I believe, in this particular way, meaning that men tend to want to see themselves as rugged individuals and tend to be socialized to thinking that you shouldn't need other people and de-emphasize relationships. Women don't, as a rule, generally don't have a problem with valuing relationships, but many men do. And so many men are at risk for that reason. But that's the poison. The antidote, I believe, the best antidote I know is the use of these medicines, the classic psychedelics in general and MDMA in particular, because I believe it's the shortest distance between where we are as a society, where we are as a human species, and where we need to be, is enough people doing MDMA under the right circumstances, following the protocols, obviously. Otherwise, it can be dangerous. But enough people doing MDMA so that we have a critical mass of people doing it and doing other psychedelics in a responsible way to shift the whole mindset in the culture from one of fear and greed and all other attitudes that promote injustice and other attitudes that further the inaction over climate change and global warming, and enough. I really believe in these medicines that they can help shift awareness towards, oh my God, like I can really be more healed, and I can really be a whole person. I can really be worthy of love and able to give more love than I thought. And maybe the way I've been treating other people and myself especially has been too harshly. And maybe the way I've been thinking of nature has been too harshly, and thinking of nature as some other out there, like we think of political opponents or some groups as other, and maybe that othering is an illusion, and that that the distance I put between me and other people is a painful illusion, and the distance I put between me and nature is an illusion that is also dangerous. And maybe we're all part of the same thing, and we're all really on the same side, and we better get hip to that quick, otherwise we're going to destroy ourselves. So
Charlie, so if you sorry, if you had a thread you wanted to finish there, I did have.
no, I'm sorry if I'm coming across too preachy here.
No, this is great. It's great. No worries.
Just
Absolutely,
stepping here
yeah.
and saying what's in my mind and in my heart.
No, absolutely. I'm so yeah, if you're interested in people kind of asking questions as we go, I'll ask folks to do that. If anyone has any questions, you can kind of queue up, but I have a few on the couple stuff. And then if you wanted
Sure.
to talk about group stuff later, we could do that as well, depending on the time. So
Yeah, go ahead.
one of the things I noticed you mentioned a few times was doing things under the right circumstances. So, I think if you wouldn't mind sharing kind of some examples of what are the wrong circumstances, and then in sharing what do you think are the right circumstances, that would be really helpful.
Okay, well, as I say, and listening to Ecstasy, I talk about the number of times Shelley and I have rolled, like 70, 75 times. And I said the number of times we've hung out on a Saturday night thinking, I don't know what to do. What do you want to do, Shelley? And she says, I don't know, let's roll. Zero. It's never happened like that. We always plan it in advance. We always take these excursions very seriously, and plan them and curate them, and have a loosely followed agenda and intention. So that's one part of the protocols. And if you don't do it right, and you do it spontaneously, that can be good too. If the mindset is okay, if your setting is good, and if it's pure, and the dosage is pure and an accurate count. But I think part of what gives psychedelics a bad name are people who abuse them by using them to self-medicate. And I don't mean using them to heal, that can be a good thing, of course, but using them to just numb the pain, that's going to be a problem and can lead to addictive behavior, especially with something like MDMA or ketamine. So one needs to be careful about how how they're using it. And excuse me. Certainly, like I'm saying, if you don't hydrate, if you're dancing the night away in a hot, crowded room and sweating and not hydrating, it can be dangerous. If you don't test it, you don't know what the hell is in it. And today, of course, the big danger is MDMA gotten off the dark web, often cut with fentanyl. And that's where these, quote, overdoses of MDMA come from. It's not an overdose. It's just the addition of fentanyl and the lethal dose of that. But so it's an overdose of fentanyl. But it's happening all too often. And I point to this organization called dancesafe.org, dancesafe.org, where you can go and legally purchase a testing kit and fentanyl strips to make sure your stash is pure. And you can use that for LSD as well, and other drugs. So, Kenny, am I answering your question?
Yeah, no, that's good. Absolutely. And for those who here in Vancouver who aren't aware, there are some testing facilities right in town which are free and available. So getyourdrugstested.com is one of the ones. There's a couple others as well. It's right on East Hastings. So good advice for anybody. So wanted to ask about in terms of dosages for this particular, if saying want to have a connection with in a couple setting, is there any particular doses that you would recommend? Is it different than any other times? Do you have any suggestions around dosing?
It's a good question. Yesterday we had somebody who was like saying, I'm not feeling it because I'm used to like a dose of 200 milligrams and I only took 120, but eventually he felt it. The standard dose for an adult, and I only think adults should be doing this, frankly, is 120 milligrams. And like they say in the car ads, your mileage may vary. You might need more, you might need less. What I have found is, I mean, if you look at me, you can tell like I'm not a spring chicken here. And as I found that as I age, and Rick Doblin agrees with me, he said, it's true that as we age, the body gets more sensitive to drugs. And I thought the magic was over for me with MDMA because I wasn't feeling it anyway. I was like, it was hitting me, and I was doing my standard dose of 120 or even 100, and it was hitting me, and I was going shooting right past the sweet spot to too much jaw clenching and hyperventilation, and my eyes were going like that, and with this nystagmus that can hit sometimes. And so I thought my rolling days were over until I realized that I need less. And I'm 73, so I need probably a lot less than any of you. But for me, I do 65 milligrams now, and Shelley does 100. And it's magic. It's just magic, even though we've rolled so many times. So we're able to keep it going, even into old age, because we're just very conscientious about how we do it.
And does that affect? Would that any recommendation on kind of on boosting as well? Is any difference there? I know standard advice is generally like half as much to boost.
Yeah, generally half as much. So standard dose is 120 and the boost is 60 usually, though some people prefer 75. And that can be done an hour into the high, 2 hours into the high. If you boost too soon, you're going to get a clenched jaw and it might be uncomfortable. And that's when somebody says, I'm rolling really hard, they've done a whole lot. But I found that a moderate dose can act like magic. And by the way, in the studies, the research that they're doing treating people with severe cases of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, with MDMA, often those people are getting 75 milligrams and having phenomenal results. So I would suggest be moderate with your dosing. And if you're going to boost, and I always do, boost with half and do yourself a favor and don't boost a second time. It's always a temptation to keep it going, but you might regret it the next day. This is a powerful chemical. It hits the body hard. You need to replenish, and that means plenty of sleep, 5 HTP, 100, 200 milligrams that same night, and at bedtime, and maybe another 200 the following night as well. And lots of good food, nutritious food, because you want to replenish your body.
Excellent, excellent. So in terms of working with like a couple, or what is, just from your experience, when what are the kind of experiences that are having, or what happens when difficult things come up? But what is generally coming up in this? Like, some folks talk about doing it as therapy, right? That's like something that's been looked at. Are you suggesting for this relationship Superglue that we're treating it like therapy, or just more for enjoyment? And if difficult things do come up, do you have any advice around that?
Okay. Yeah. It certainly can be used recreationally for couples, though I prefer the term celebrationally. It can be used to celebrate your relationship. And difficult things can come up, of course. And the way to deal with it is through talking it through. Often what happens, and what I've heard about what happens with couples when they do MDMA together to heal their relationship, or to just process something, or whatever they want to do with it, is that ego boundaries, like I said earlier, get temporarily dissolved, and stuff comes out. Stuff comes up, that resentments that have been hiding and lurking might come out. Anger might come out, or just things that are really difficult to say, and so difficult that they haven't been said, might be said during this time. So the couple, if they're doing it just by themselves, might go through a difficult hour or two as they bump up against uncomfortable feelings because of something that their partner is saying, or there's something that they are going through and that they need to say. The best way to integrate such an experience is with a therapist, a psychedelic-friendly therapist, who you can see afterwards to help work these things through. I'm a couples therapist. I'm a psychotherapist, and I do my best work with, I believe, with couples. Half my practice is couples, and uh, I mean, I don't sit for people as of yet. I look forward to the day when I can do that freely and legally. But I what I've seen with couples when they come back and report to me is that it's like doing 6 or 12 months worth of therapy in a day, even if there's no therapist present. All kinds of things come up and out, and get and the opportunity is to get those things worked out and processed and healed. And so the best way to do it as a couple is with a therapist trained in sitting for people, to sit there with you and for you for the whole day. Best sandwich between preparation sessions and integration sessions, on bookending the session with MDMA. And if a couple feels like they just want to do it for enjoyment, great. It can certainly be used for that, and to like I say, celebrate the relationship. And some people find it's good for sex and lovemaking. Others say that, no, I feel sensual, but I don't feel sexual. And often that's the case, unless you add a lot of cannabis to the mix. It might be more sensual than sexual, but just the sensuality of it can be fabulous. Shelley and I were once on vacation at a sort of an all-inclusive resort where they had these huge jacuzzi baths right in the room. And we both sat in the jacuzzi and were sort of cradling each other on MDMA. And it was like heaven. There's so many ways to enjoy and celebrate a relationship on MDMA, and there are other ways to do it as well. So that's what I have to say about that right now.
Excellent. So just to recap that to be clear, for clarification, for couples, it sounded like your recommendation for couples that want to work on things is to bring in a trained kind of psychedelic aware therapist, and generally to approach it as kind of celebratory. But of course, if difficult things come up, it's to kind of work through that and then maybe follow up with a therapist afterwards if things do come up difficultly. Is that a good summary of the suggestion?
Yes.
Cool. Just want to make sure everyone was clear on that one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you did mention integration. So do you find, again, obviously, if a couple is working with a therapist, they're generally going to kind of guide that integration portion of it. Is there any tips or advice you have on integration in the context of couples, how it might be different than when it's with individuals?
Well, yeah. The best way I heard of preparing for a couple session with a sitter is when a sitter says, okay, I want each of you to come up with a list of statements you want to make to your partner, and keep those statements secret until the day that we actually do the medicine. But just have a running list of things you want to say to your partner the day that we're there. And then those statements, when the therapist is sitting for the people, those statements get spoken and processed. And afterwards, integration, which could be the next day or the following weeks, can be about, what did I learn about my partner and from those statements? What are they saying to me that I wasn't expecting, or that I was expecting but was difficult to hear? And how can how can we work these things through? So a good therapist would give them specific things to do. Like, here's the most obvious that I give my sober clients, and it's so simple, but I think it would be good for integrating an MDMA session as well, which is a daily ritual between two spouses or two partners, two romantic partners, of, at the end of the day, you take time, and it could be a specific time every day, of just debriefing about what that day was like. And the way you do it is very simply, one person speaks, the other person listens. Not, the other person doesn't comment on it. They don't say, oh yeah, that happened to me too today. No. You're just listening to your partner. You can ask a clarifying question, but you're just listening and taking in all that they experienced that day, anything they want to share with you. And then when that person is finished, which could be 5 minutes or could be half an hour, whatever it takes, then you switch. And then the other person speaks and the other person listens. And that simple ritual can help keep a couple bonded, no matter what stuff they're dealing with in the rest of their lives, no matter how much the kids are demanding on their time and making things stressful, or the demands of the job or the world are making things stressful. If they can keep that connection daily with each other, it can help them through and help them use the relationship to give them strength to get through the tough parts of life. That's a favorite method of integration. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. So like I said, if anyone has any questions, you can come out, if you want to come on up here, and while if you know, just so you can get up close or whatever. While we get a few people here on that, I wanted to just give you an opportunity to maybe talk about the book you wrote. Give a little overview of that, and we'll get a couple questions, and then we'll wrap up. I know it's getting late out there in Brooklyn for you.
Not too late. Oh, Kenny, do I have to talk about my book?
You don't have to if you don't want to, but if it's,
I'm just kidding. Okay, I could talk about my book all day.
Oh, well, we'll have another
but
session for that. No.
listening to Ecstasy, the transformative power of MDMA. It's really a memoir. It's a love story. It's an adventure story about how two unsuspecting middle-aged people 20 years ago started putting their tiptoeing into a forbidden world of psychedelic drug users, and we were all underground at that time, and found that world to be enchanted, and found that the people there were helping us open up our lives to friendship and fun and freedom. And the book is also about coupling and how to live the best life you can live, and has the attitude that play, fun, and joy can in themselves be transformative experiences and make for a better life. And there's also a chapter at the end about a guide to safe use with all the protocols, what to do, what not to do, and how. So it's all that. And oh, and yeah, oh, of course, another aspect to the book, which I haven't discussed today, is using MDMA across the adult lifespan, because we've found that without intending to do particular research on it, we just was following our own bliss there, but we kept doing it and found that as we transitioned from middle age into old age, it was helping us. It's helping us make the transitions, helping us face the ultimate mortality issues, because when I'm ready to go, I'll have a deep knowledge that I have lived life to the fullest. I won't have too many regrets, that's for sure. But it's helped us transition across the whole lifespan, and I write about this in the book, and how the many ways that it can help transition from young to middle age to old age. And but I'm very glad that my publisher allowed me to include a chapter in the end about maximizing, how to maximize the benefits, how to minimize the risks, because that's all important. And as you know, these are very powerful medicines that can be used constructively or otherwise, and that if abused or used the wrong way or without the proper knowledge, can really be dangerous. And that's where we get these occasional horror stories that people didn't know about the protocols and how to protect themselves. So I was glad I was able to include that in the book.
Yeah, it's a good resource. I definitely have hit the index over the last year a few times for sure. So no, it's real good. So awesome. So yeah, we do have a few folks with questions here. I'm gonna kind of adjust the camera up here. You can just kind of come right up and say, yeah, it's, you can just talk about it right there.
Hello.
Hi.
What's your name?
Mariana.
Mariana. Hi.
Yeah. Hi. I just have one question for you. You're talking about MDMA in the context of couple relationships, but can MDMA be used to heal relationships that are not couple relationships, like relationships between family members, like between parents and children, or between siblings?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
As far as parents and children is concerned, then you get to the dicey aspect of, are you going to give the kids MDMA? Which, you know, some parents have spoken very, very openly about this. As a matter of fact, there's a...
I don't think you're referring to children.
No, I'm not referring to young children. No, not at all.
Okay.
I'm being adult children and their parents.
Okay. In a word, yes. If done the right way, and again, it's best done with a professional there to moderate, because such a session can be explosive if there's stuff that really needs to be healed. But if done by somebody who was trained in not only sitting for people, but trained in couples therapy or a family therapy, it can be an enormous breakthrough.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariana.
I can say from personal experience, I've definitely made some better relationships with friends from that. So absolutely. Yeah. All right, come on up.
Hello.
Hi, Charlie. My
Hi.
name's Nima.
Niba?
How are you? Nima.
Okay. Nima. How do you spell that?
Nima.
Nima. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. Couple of questions for you. I'm going to presume that some of your clients are on antidepressants. Do you advise them, if they're going to do MDMA, to discontinue the antidepressants before doing so?
They have to. Most antidepressants these days are SSRIs and SNRIs. And if they don't wean themselves off those medicines, they're not going to feel the MDMA. But I wouldn't tell them to wean off. I tell them to speak to their prescribing professional, MD or physician or psychiatrist, whoever's giving them, prescribing the medicines, to help them wean off of it in the days and weeks before the experience.
And I'm not too up on the science of it, but what I understand is that MDMA floods the brain with serotonin, which can result in depleted serotonin in the days and weeks following. In your experience and in the experience of your clients, is it common for people to experience a depressed mood in the weeks or months following an MDMA session?
Yeah, Nima, that's a good question. What you're talking about, of course, is what's known in the culture as the Tuesday blues, which came upon, it came into the lexicon because people who would rave all night long on a Saturday night, and then by Tuesday, like they felt like they were hit by a truck because their mood just plummeted. That does happen for some people, but in 75 roles, Shelley and I have not once had the Tuesday blues. And other people I've spoken to, people who run the research, say that no one they're giving these medicines to suffers from the Tuesday blues, and they don't have that dip in mood later. And why? It's because they're following the protocols. They don't overdo it. They don't do it too often. They don't take too much when they do it. They replenish their bodies with plenty of sleep and good food and 5-HTP and maybe some magnesium as well, and all that good stuff. And it's pure MDMA, and they don't mix it with other drugs. If you follow those protocols, your chances of suffering the type of after effects that you're talking about diminish sharply.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, last call for questions. Oh, yeah, I didn't see you there. Sorry. You don't have to bend over, you can just stand.
Okay. Hi, Charlie.
Hello.
Thanks for
Hello.
joining us. I'm Dana.
Dana, hi.
Hi. My question, I heard you saying that you don't sit with your clients, but it sounds like you do work with them on the prep and the integration. And so I'm just wondering, when you sort of send them off to go and have their session with each other, what kind of instruction or suggestions do you give them as far as setting up their environment, as far as structuring the day or the night, or how to set them up to have a good experience?
I like that question because I always I use 3x5 cards for organize my life, and because I'm an old guy, I don't do it on my phone. So I write up a card for the day, and on one, in the margin of the card, I draw a line, and in that margin, I delineate all the ingredients for that day that I'm going to use, whether it's list the MDMA. I'll list the cannabis. If I'm going to use that at the end of the roll. Any snacks I want there. Any ginseng or anything like that, which can help keep my energy going throughout the day. A nice bottle of high protein, low sugar drink, that sort of thing. So I list all my ingredients that I'm going to need for the day, and I write out the agenda, which is something I follow loosely. And I tell people to do the same thing, by the way, in answering your question there, Dana, to really organize and write out what their intentions are for the day, what they hope to achieve, and have different, almost like it's a menu, and have different things that you can do that day, so that if you're in the middle of a roll and you're feeling kind of lost and you don't know what to do next, you look at that card and you just realize, oh, I wrote option to go outside, so maybe we should go take a walk, if they were doing it indoors, and which I certainly recommend for a couple who's they're going to do intensive work. They should do it indoors, but to have the option of going out for a walk, especially in a park, it can be a whole other very expansive and enjoyable part of the day. Or other things you might want to do. You might want to give each other massages. You might want to hold each other. You might want to cradle each other's faces for a while, and do other very tender things with each other physically. So these are various things that you can do, but you can put anything on the agenda at all, because MDMA heightens awareness. Anything sensual, for sure, whether it's touch or music or beautiful things to look at. It's great to have a beautiful vase of flowers there. It heightens all the senses, so it can be a way of really enjoying the full sensual experience of your body.
Hi, Charley. My name is Paul.
Paul, yes.
Nice to meet you. Two short questions. One, what is your perspective on the minimum safe use for MDMA? Like, what's the minimum time you would normally put between rolls?
Between rolls, it depends on your age.
Okay.
What age are you thinking about?
Oh. Well, my age is 45, so.
Okay. I would say doing it once a month maximum is okay.
Okay.
And if you're finding that you're not getting the kind of results you want, do it less often. Make it every 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
Would if it starts having reduced effect, do you think lowering the dose like you did in your case would help? Or
it would be an interesting experiment. That's what I did. I mean, I wasn't getting the results, so I thought, like, okay, I guess I have to do more, and then it was getting worse. Finally, I realized I need to do less, and that less is more for me. But everyone's individual, very individual with these things. You have to experiment and see what works for you.
okay, one other quick question. Thank you. I've been experimenting with MDMA and ketamine combined. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but I've been getting amazing results with it. I'm just curious if you have any perspectives on that.
Not a good perspective. You know what the classic mistake is with any of these drugs?
Mm-hmm.
The classic mistake is the mistake I made. I was rolling and a friend offered me a bump of ketamine to snort. I snorted it. I was waiting for it to come on. I felt nothing, got impatient. They said, give me a second snort. So he gave me a second bump. And of course, what happened? the first bump came on, and right after I did the second bump. So by the time the second bump hit, I had a really difficult experience and wound up puking my brains out. I was just completely overwhelmed. It was too much of a body load for me. So I can't give a good perspective on that. I'm sorry. Some people swear by the combination. They said it's heavenly and healing for them. Is that your experience, Paul?
Hell yeah.
Uh-huh.
Very much so, yeah. But doing it
Uh-huh.
carefully, I know what you're talking about. It can be, to me, it doubles the strength of ketamine when you're on MDMA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what do you experience? What happens with you when you're doing that, combining them?
Well, to me, they synergize. So I get the energy and the safety and the positivity from the MDMA, but then I get the pain relief and the kind of semi-numbing aspect that allows me to go into extremely, extremely difficult trauma. And ketamine can busy the mind, but it also can quiet the mind. So yeah, really extremely deep reset. Yeah, it gives me an extreme reset. Like ketamine gives a reset, which with MDMA it brings out all the best of either, if you dose it right, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you dose it right?
Well, I don't know how to say, I'm fairly experienced and tolerant, and I've had, ego deaths and things like that, so I'm very familiar. So I do a K-hole, which is pretty intense. So 100 milligrams of ketamine with the 120 MDMA.
I see. Okay. So
I
that's
do that at
pretty,
the end when I'm coming down, and it's an extremely intense experience. But I would say 50 to 25 or less of ketamine would be-
okay. Thank you.
Paul will be doing his own session on that. We can go a deep dive on ketamine and MDMA. I'll let you know about that one.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
Come on up. All right. I hope you got, we got a few more in line now. People thinking of some good stuff. This is great. You still good for time?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I'm just getting started.
That's good to hear.
Hi, I'm Katrine, and I'm not considering using MDMA for a relationship at the moment because I'm single, but I was thinking about a past experience I had with MDA years ago and was with a couple, and it brought up stuff in them where they started actually fighting. And it turned out to be a really difficult experience for everybody there. And when you talked about writing down things that you might want to discuss with each other ahead of time, it just kind of made me think, well, would it maybe make sense to talk to the therapist ahead of time about some of those things? Like it concerns
Oh,
me,
yes.
save up issues, right? And then hope that the MDMA is going to be some way of discussing difficult things, and that's going to make it necessarily work out. Like what if somebody it causes a rift during that time that they're rolling on the MDMA?
It can happen. But yes, clearly the way to do it is to come up with the list, but sharing the list, I should have not left this part out. Sharing the list with the therapist individually in the last preparatory session before this session with MDMA. So the therapist is well aware of what's in that list, and that nobody's about to drop a bomb like, oh, well, I've been sleeping with your best friend for the past 3 years, that sort of thing. Yeah, it needs to be done with the care of a therapist. One word about MDA. I happen to like MDA, but it's a whole lot different from MDMA. Before there was MDMA, there was MDA, and MDA used to be called the love drug in the 60s and early 70s because it was the closest thing to that kind of feeling. But one aspect of the MDA experience is that you don't have quite the sense of empathy that you do with MDMA. And so that might be part of what went wrong in that session that you witnessed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and it wasn't meant to be a therapeutic session at that time. It was recreational. So,
yeah,
there wasn't planning and so on. I just kind of think about myself when I've been in relationship counseling with an ex-husband, kind of things sort of surfacing in the session and it creating conflict before any kind of resolution began.
Yes.
And actually leaving the session more inflamed than we were before. So it was just kind of.
Well, it's like, I liken this, and I'm not commenting on your relationship. I don't know what that was like at all, of course, but I liken it to a cancer patient who is growing a tumor, and the worst part of their path might be the surgery, opening themselves up, having the tumor removed, and what could be a gruesome recovery period after that. But then they're healed. At least that's the analogy I want to present here. A couple might have a cancer of unexpressed or underexpressed resentments and hurts over time that can accumulate, stuff that's swept under the carpet, and that come out, burst out in such a session as you're talking about. In an MDMA session, that can burst out. And so it can look like, hey, we weren't that bad to begin with. Well, you kind of were, because the stuff had accumulated and it was like under the surface, and it had to come out if the relationship is going to continue in a happy way. So yeah, it can look like worse afterwards. But then the recovery period is where you have a good therapist to integrate and deal with all the crap that came up during that session to work it through.
Right.
And then you have an opportunity to have marriage 2.0.
Right. One quick follow-up. Have you ever had a couple that actually realized during their session that it was time to part ways because, even though they loved each other, maybe it wasn't, like, has it ever worked in a different way where it helped facilitate a breakup?
No, I've not seen that with couples who've used MDMA, but I've seen that in couples who've come to me, and after several sessions, we realized, and I started realizing, like, they shouldn't be together. There's just too much. It's too much history that is like weighing the whole thing down for too much, and not enough good stuff to justify it continuing. So that, sometimes that does happen, and couples therapy is not necessarily there to heal the couple. It's there with the hope of healing the couple, but sometimes it's just to get to the truth, and sometimes that's the truth.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Katrina.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi.
My name is Elena. I have
What was Selena?
Elena.
Elena. Hi.
I have two questions. First question, have you ever facilitated or seen a session where, let's say, one of the partners is able to take MDMA and one is not?
No, but I've heard of the research that goes on. Actually, well, let me back up. There's research that's happening for couples with MDMA where only one person has a severe case of PTSD, and they're both going to help heal that person, but both partners are doing the MDMA that day because of the healing aspects of MDMA and the empathy that it can give the non-PTSD suffering person. But generally with MDMA, it's best for both partners to do it together.
So my next question is, my partner actually has a very strong case of post-MDMA blues. They've decided to no longer take MDMA due to this. It was quite severe at the last time. So I'm trying to find, I'm interested in this work and I'm trying to find a way to.
He what work? What did you say?
With the couples work with MDMA.
Yeah. Well, in that case where the partner doesn't want to do it again, right? Because of the blues, severe after effects, then you might want to switch to a different medicine, like psilocybin, which doesn't tend to give that same down after effect for some people, and can also be, of course, quite beautiful and heart-opening.
So you would say psilocybin is the next closest?
Yeah. Yes, I would. Some people are experimenting with ketamine, like this other gentleman brought up, for couples, but I don't know much about that, so I can't speak with any authority to that. But doing a moderate dose of psilocybin together, and what I mean by a moderate dose is average strength mushrooms, about 2 or 3 milligrams each, can be a powerful and a heart-opening and beautiful experience.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I'm probably not gonna ask the second question. Thanks for-
Okay.
That mostly covered it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elena.
All right, I think our last one here, Ping. Thank you.
Hi, Charlie.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Ping, like ping pong.
Ping. Yes. And I think I know what your favorite medicine is. How can I tell?
Oh my God. I have a couple of questions for you. So MDMA is known to dissolve boundaries and bond people together and work through their, bless you, their defenders. So in a session, how do you know that when the boundaries are dissolved, how do you know that you don't become so dissolved and enmeshed in each other?
It did not become too enmeshed.
Yeah.
I like that question.
That doesn't happen.
Well, I don't know about assurance. I mean, first of all, you have to understand that the ego dissolving happens for the time that you're high. And when you come down and back to baseline, you tend to come back to your normal ego boundaries, but hopefully taking some of the good stuff from the experience with you. But that's part of the purpose of coming up with statements beforehand to say to each other, because when you make a statement to a partner, especially a very simple statement, it could be a request, it could be just something that's on your mind, that's been on your mind or heavy on your heart for a while, and you're putting it out there. That's a way of defining yourself for that moment. That's a way of saying, this is me, and I'm saying this to you as two separate individuals. So this is something that we need to work on together. How can we work this out? And so when you make a statement like that, you're distinguishing yourself as an individual, and that's a way of maintaining your boundaries and not get lost in the other person.
Thank you.
Okay.
Another question. So when a couple is in a session, when traumas come up and the defenders part of ourselves come up, and it can be really hard shadow work with each other. How do you know when to work through all the hard work and when it's actually a time to end the relationship?
Oh, well, don't end it that day. That's for sure. As a matter of fact, don't make any rash or big major decisions within a couple of weeks of rolling.
Hang on a second, Charlie. With the answer, she was going to repeat the question so everyone in the room can hear her better. Do you mind?
So when a couple is in a session, traumas come up and defender parts of ourselves come up, and it can bring pretty heavy, like traumatized part of ourselves, and it can be hard work. So my question was, how do you know when to fight through all the hard work and when the relationship is actually not going to work out, when to give up?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, that comes back to an answer that I deal with couples all the time is what's a relationship worth salvaging, and what isn't. When to know how to keep working, and when to know when to quit. And that's not it's a big issue, but it's not a simple one. If stuff comes up during an MDMA session, um, you want a therapist to help work these things out afterwards. Trained couples therapist is the best way to work these things out. Difficult stuff comes up, that's an opportunity to make the relationship better than ever, and to really heal each other, which is, I think, the real potential of any good relationship, is healing all the wounds that your partner has, not just the ones that you gave them, but wounds that they had before they met you. And so that's the potential of any good couples partnership. But sometimes people are wounded in the same place, in the same way, too much, and they're too similar in that way, and they trigger each other all the time. And if they can't stop, that can be a sign that you might have to split up. But if you value the relationship, you don't want to split up unless you're really working at it, and with a professional, and seeing, and getting the professional's opinion. And are we getting anywhere? Are we are we capable of getting to a better place, because it's so painful, and we keep hurting each other, and pissing each other off, and making each other kind of scared in different ways. And so you can ask the therapist, what they think after they've worked with you for a while.
Thank you. That was a great answer. So my last question is, how do you find a therapist who's MDMA friendly?
Great question. You go on the maps.org website, maps.org, where integration therapists are listing themselves. There's also another website called psychedelic.support, which also lists therapists. And I divided geographically, so you find a therapist in your area, and that's a good way to find a therapist who does integration work. But some of those therapists might do sitting for people, or they would maybe be plugged into the underground network and know therapists who sit for people. So that's the best way in.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Ping. You too.
There are a few resources if you want to ask in our group chat for finding counselors or people to work with in the area as well. So I'm not going to mention it right now, but yeah, awesome. So thank you, Charley. Any closing words before we say good night?
Yes, could you please, I'm just looking at a chair here. Could you please, there we go. Thank you. Okay, it's good to see all your smiling faces. To close, I don't know. What can I say? If you want to be in touch with me, go to listeningtoecstasy.com. You can contact me through there. That's my website, listeningtoecstasy.com. And I'm happy to hear from any of you, actually. And I hope you can, I want to encourage people, if this is a time to come out of the chemical closet. If it doesn't jeopardize your job, if it doesn't jeopardize your relationship with your family, it can be good to come out of the chemical closet, because that's how we're going to normalize the use of these substances. When responsible people who know what they're doing bare their souls and tell other people in their lives what they're doing and how they're using these substances to improve their lives, that's how the word gets out, and that's how the stigma gets dissolved. And so I would encourage people, if it doesn't hurt them to do so, to come out of the closet, because now's the time.
Awesome. Charlie, thanks so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kenny.
Good night. See you later, friends.
Okay. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.